Okay, everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. I first just want to say thank you so much to all of you for joining this live webinar. This is the Windermere workshop, and we have a bunch of you who are joining in live, and also I know a bunch more who will be listening to the recording. In any case, whether you're listening live or listening to the recording, we just really appreciate you joining us here this month. This is something we do periodically. This is a service we offer out to our clients called the Windermere Workshop to give you insights and lessons on items and topics that are super relevant to people related to questions that we often get as it relates to your real estate. So we hope you get a lot out of today. I am your host, Eric Thompson. So my role is I am president of Windermere Real Estate here in Colorado. So today's topic, of course, is called the ins and outs of remodeling. We have a wonderful guest that I will introduce here in just a couple moments, who's going to be our expert guest as we get into this topic of remodeling. Our goal today is to give you a whole lot of takeaways, give you some insights, give you some things that you may not see or hear about. If you watch shows on TV that are about remodeling, this is a kind of a popular topic on TV, and we want to go even a little bit deeper than that, give you some really great insights firsthand, based on firsthand experience, someone who lives and breathes this every day. We're going to give you great takeaways about the ins and outs of remodeling, just in case it's something you've ever thought about, something you're considering doing in the future. We're going to get all those questions answered. All right, so that's going to be the plan today as we're together for the next hour. You should also know that we're going to save time at the end for some Q&A. And speaking of Q&A, it would help me out just to make sure I'm coming through loud and clear. If you wouldn't mind typing me just a quick note using the GoToWebinar question tool, and that way I know I'm coming through loud and clear. All right, so that would really help me out. Just say hi or hello, or I can hear you just fine. That would help me, and I see those comments starting to roll in here on my dashboard. So I have a dashboard here on my screen where I can see all of your questions and comments, and those are starting to roll in. So that's great. Thanks for playing along. Thanks for interacting with that. Now I know that we are broadcasting nice and loud and clear. All right, so just one quick thing before I introduce our wonderful guest, just a little bit about our company. I know pretty much all of you who are joining know about Windermere. You're fans of Windermere, which we really appreciate. Just in case you don't know about our company, this is where we're located. So all those red dots represent Windermere offices. We are obviously all over the Western U.S., so we have 300 offices. We have 6,000 agents serving clients all over the Western U.S. We're the largest regional real estate brokerage company in the Western U.S. We're super proud of that, and we are growing all across Colorado. We're all up and down the Front Range right now, and we're looking to grow to additional locations, and we're excited about that. So we're excited that all of you are engaged with our company, and I'm guessing that a lot of you got invited by your Windermere agent, and they, of course, can help you with all of your real estate needs. All right, so let's get into our topic for today. All right, does that sound good? We're going to get right into this topic of remodeling. All right, so you may have lots of questions about remodeling. You may have kind of some perceptions of it, some thoughts about it, things that you've researched already. We thought it would be fun and really useful and valuable to bring on a pro, bring on an expert, bring on someone who lives and breathes this every day, bring on someone who owns a company that does this exact work, someone who's used to dealing and working with and helping people just like you. We thought we would have an expert guest on today's webinar. And so that guest, I'm really excited to introduce to all of you. Her name is Jenny Ruland. She is the co-owner of Homespun Staging. And Jenny, let's start with me just saying thank you so much and welcome to our webinar.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric. It's great to be here. Thanks for everybody for listening. Hope you can find some benefits in the next hour and we don't bore you. Might crack a few jokes or something, but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, good. Yeah, jokes are just fine. We'll keep it light. We'll keep it fast moving, and I don't expect to bore anyone knowing all the things that you're going to talk about. Everyone should know that Jenny and I have spent a lot of time together preparing for this. We've gone through lots of information, and I think that she has put together some terrific insights for you. Jenny, I was thinking it may be helpful for people to know just a little bit about you and your background, and we'll eventually get to a little bit about your company, but why don't you start with sharing just a little bit about your background? That way people know kind of where all this information is coming from. So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my husband and I are originally from Iowa, and so we're Midwest born and raised, and then being transplanted to Colorado. Um, Self-taught, lifelong entrepreneur. So I'm the owner of Homespun Staging and Design, where we do staging for real estate and then also design services for remodels, new builds, things like that. And then the co-owner of Homespun Construction. So that's kind of the construction side if you're wanting to actually do the build out. And then we're based here in Fort Collins, so we just live right up on North Overland Trail, where we do our officing and shop and everything like that. And then I have a background when I first moved to Colorado. Well, my husband's been in the construction world for 17 years now, but then me kind of switching forces and joining him on and learning and that type of thing. And so I've have a background in some roofing and restoration, property management. I've done multiple rehabs, remodels, new builds, did some short-term rental setups, so like the Airbnbs and VRBOs and things like that, and get those turnkey to making some profits. Took my real estate license, just wanted to know a little bit about what's going on in the world and the transaction, all the steps. And so I'm inactive in Colorado, but am licensed. And then I'm doing the staging and design as well. And so just kind of engulfed in the industry in multiple capacities, which is fun. It keeps it eventful for me. Doesn't get stagnant, not sitting in the office and that type of thing. So, yeah, so in and out of construction and real estate, and then just countless seminars, books, continuing education classes, just trying to keep the mind fresh and what's going on out there. Lots of hours on a job site, putting on the respirator, watching the guys. And then when I'm not doing that, I guess I try to hit the mountain, do some hiking, breathe in the fresh air of Colorado. Yeah, I guess consume all things real estate and construction.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to say, it sounds like you are definitely passionate about the Colorado lifestyle and certainly passionate about real estate. Boy, you know real estate. You have dove right into real estate, all those different components of it. So you really get real estate. One thing I thought was super valuable in terms of having you as our guest is that not only do you understand the construction side of remodeling, but you also have a really great eye for design. You really understand design, understand trends. We're going to get into that, and I think that relates to your staging business as well. So you get what it takes on the construction side, and you also have a great eye for design. And so we're going to kind of leverage both of those things as we go along today, if that's all right with you.
Awesome. Yeah. I love it all.
All right, cool. That sounds good. Okay, so I thought we would start. And by the way, everyone listening and everyone watching should know we have lots of great photography we're going to show you. We're going to show you some before and after pictures. We're going to show you examples of the latest design trends and kind of what's hot right now. We'll talk about what's not hot even. So we'll get to those images and photographs in a little bit. But Jenny and I thought it'd be good to start with the misconceptions. So we think that there may be some misconceptions out there about remodeling. Maybe even starting with things may appear easier than they seem on YouTube, right? You can YouTube a lot of these things, but we thought we would really leverage Jenny's firsthand expertise and the fact that she does this in her business. She works with clients every single day, and let's get to the misconceptions. And Jenny, I think you've come up with 4 or 5 of these. Things that may be misconceptions. So why don't you take us through all of those, if that's all right?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I mean, just like Eric touched on, is a common misconception is that it's easier. I mean, everybody's watched the HGTV shows where they snap into setting the tile and then they snap back out, and in 5 minutes the wall's done. So
right.
It's not exactly how it works, but that's kind of how the steps of the process go. So really, I guess I've got 5 or 4 things to talk about today about misconceptions, and some of them are true, but we're going to create a balance here with those today. And so really, starting first is most projects run longer. So we're talking about timeline. You hear everybody talking, oh my gosh, it took so much longer, or it was costlier than what my contractor had told me. And so, yes, very true. However, really coming down to planning. And some renovation projects maybe go beyond that projected budget or for the range or the time frame. But it really comes back to a lack of planning or those unknowns. And so we're going to get into that a little bit later as well, with the process and what that looks like. But it all works together. And so the more planning, if you have a list to go to the grocery store, you get what's on your list. If you're self-disciplined and you know what you're going to have for the recipe to get home, and you're going to make that recipe, right? So really it's planning when it comes to sticking to that timeline and budget. And then there's going to be those unknowns as well. But it's really important to determine your scope of work, get as many details as you can. It's just like in any other industry, you're your own advocate. And so really making certain that you're sending out your message of what your goal is for the space and what your intention is for the space, and making certain that your contractor and everybody involved know what the intention is for the space. And so really that's going to cut down on overages. It's going to cut down on timeline issues. Like for instance, they need to know if you're living in the home and those types of things. And so really, while the construction is going on. So really is just, I guess, transparency throughout the project. And then adding in
the timing and to handle timing delays, or the way to mitigate timing delays, is to spend more time up front, it sounds like, on planning. So if you get it planned out, if you spend time up front on planning, that's also going to help with your budget as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, many times it's just like creating that roadmap before you go. You know how many miles it is, how gas is going to cost you, that type of thing. And so really it comes down to planning. There's also some other things that come up, right? So adding in a contingency, I cannot stress enough how big it is to add in a contingency. And so all contractors are going to be different. So we always add in between 10 and 15% for contingency, and 10 being on the smaller side. So say it's just a kitchen remodel, or moving on to the scope work. So the larger the scope of work, the more contingency you're going to want. And that's going to help you for unexpected issues. So say you get in there and you have planned to the T, you feel like you're 100% ready, contractors are good, everybody's set in the scope. And then we get into that bathroom, we pull down that tile, the existing tile, and there's mold. All right, well, now we've got some other issues, right? We've got to mitigate that. We've got to add in time. So it's going to inherently increase the budget and increase the timeline as well. And so typically you'll see, if you look in hindsight, you'll see if the budget expanded, then the timeline expanded as well. And so really trying to plan as much as you can, but just knowing unknowns are going to come up. It's construction. It's just kind of like getting in there for surgery or what have you. So you never know, but I feel like that planning process as well of knowing, okay, my contractor and I really mesh. He's a great guy. I've done my research, or I've had referrals from him, that type of thing, or her. And then making sure that you've done everything you can in that planning process to set up some additional funds, or, and we'll talk about it a little later, is in that planning process of creating kind of a wish list and things that are going to get knocked off if other unexpected come up. And so just kind of knowing you're going to have to mesh and mold with the project.
Got it.
And then there's going to be uncontrollable delays as well. So really, we're in Colorado, right? The state motto is, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. You have concrete ready to pour on, June 1st, but Mother Nature decides to rain for a week. And so it's pushing the schedule. And contractors are really good in this area to know, okay, we've got to kind of plan for some of those unexpected. We're watching the weather. We've all got 10 different apps or what have you, but really, I would say the biggest thing for that misconception is it's always costlier. It's always over the timeline. It comes back down to planning.
Yep, sounds like it.
Yeah,
fantastic. That's great. And the next one you touched on before, and that's about being able to live in the home during the renovation.
Yeah. So a lot of people go, oh, I can't live in the home, or it, what have you. You can. But I would just caution you that, okay, so say we're doing a kitchen remodel. Okay, what do we have in the basement? Do we have a small kitchenette? Do we have a hot plate that are going to accommodate the family of 4? There's going to be tension. Just kind of knowing that, all right, we're planning, to be out of the house most of the time, or the grill is set up, or that type of thing. And so really it takes more accommodations on your behalf to adjust with that, because the contractor's there to do what they need to get done, right? They're there to get the kitchen installed. And so there's going to be dust, there's going to be dirt. It's just inherently they can, cut the tile outside and run in and out for every cut, but that's going to slow them down. And so they need to know that ahead of time. They're planning as well of, okay, that's going to add an extra day. I mean, it sounds somewhat, a little bit off the, a little bit crazy to the consumer or the homeowner, but it does. I mean, you're walking an extra mile, right? So, and then those cuts, if they do it in the house, we're going to have it in the HVAC system. And so there's some give and take when it comes to construction. And so there's got to create that balance. But yeah, you can definitely live in the house while the renovations happen. I hear about it all the time. We've had a couple clients that have stayed in the house. I will say it gets to be the point where some of them like to get chatty, and so that'll slow us down, or they like to stay up, or so it is easier, I'll be honest, to just head out, suck it up for the month, go live with the in-laws, grab an Airbnb, be available. Like, don't schedule the vacation where you're going to shut off your phone during this time, but maybe that's it too. You get to the comfortable in the process where it's just kind of monitoring, if you will, or the project's going, and you're like, hey, we're okay with going to, the grandparents' house, or taking the time for the week vacation we usually go to our hometown, or what have you. So really, yes, you can live there. It is easier on all parties because tension's just created between the family members and things like that if we're in a more of a cramped space. And it's your home too, and the contractor wants to respect that, but they've got to get the work done. And so there's this very fine line for the balance.
Right. That totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. Well, another one we hear about as it relates to remodeling is that someone will say, oh my gosh, I can't even think about doing a remodel because I'm sure I'm going to have to hire an architect and a contractor and a designer and. So do you need all those people to do the remodel?
Yeah, so not necessarily. Coming from somebody that's obviously what puts bread on my table. It depends on need. And so really, it comes down to how savvy are you, first of all. Are you doing the planning? Are you okay with making all your selections? For instance, an interior designer would help you space plan, or help you simple fixture swatches or things like that, or make certain that you've got samples and your colors go good together and that type of thing. And so the whole remodel is maybe making the whole house feel cohesive. And so if you feel like you've got that intuition, or you've got that, you are okay with staying up late, YouTubing and Googling and that type of thing, or creating the Pinterest board, go for it. It's just more time. And so the more trades you add, let's say, it's just the less amount of time you're going to have to spend, if you will, or hopefully, right, if they do their job correctly. Okay. So really, it depends. Then if we're moving walls, yeah, we're going to have to have an engineer on that. We're going to have the contractor. We're going to have possibly the architect. Some interior designers can do we can do renderings and things like that to fully show you 3D of what the space is going to look like. But when it comes down to, so you don't necessarily need the architect. On new builds, yes, they're going to do full plans and that type of thing, which interior designers, there's a kind of a sliding scale for them. For us, of what we can do, but you're going to have that engineer stamp and the architect stamp. So it depends on your need and really what you want for the space. I would say the least amount, if it's a smaller remodel, bathroom remodel, again, we'll get into this next of, you could possibly DIY it, but how much time do you want to spend? And so really having someone else walk you through the process is always nice. It's just, I'm kind of like, I love to order my groceries online and just have it ready for me, right? I don't want to have to do it. So It really just comes down to need of what you want, what your need is, what your space is looking for. And a lot of contractors work on different scopes as well. And so some will be like, okay, hey, I will do the construction, I will do the demo, I'll put it back together, but I don't touch selecting any of the materials. And some contractors will be like, oh yeah, hey, I'm into that, I'll kind of help you, I have time. That's another thing, is a lot of contractors don't have time. They're like, my husband says, I get paid from the neck down, I work, I get this installed to the plans, and we're good to go, we move on. And so that's where I come in, is of, bringing in okay, this subway would look great with, this, the carpet and the paint and all that. So, it just really depends on need. And I know I wish I had a better, answer for you,
No,
but
that's good. That's really good.
really
And I
does.
think it kind of ties to the next one too. In the last misconception that doing, some people think, well, I'll just do it all myself and that'll save me a bunch of money. But that's probably not always true, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not always true. So we've had some projects where, we get in there and the bathroom's already torn out and the husband's like, just me, I just have to save the marriage or what have you. So, it is. It depends on how savvy you are as well. And do you have the tools? I mean, contractors don't just charge what they charge because they don't have the knowledge, the know-how, and the tools. I mean, the trailers and the tools they get are really expensive. And so if you've got all the chop saws and all of the tile saws and everything that you're going to need for the specific repairs you're doing, and maybe you're savvy enough, or you can kind of this middle ground, and some contractors may kick me for saying this, but maybe you act as the GC, and so you know the process enough and how it would work, but you don't know necessarily how to hang drywall and tape and texture, and so maybe you hire that drywall out, or it just kind of depends on the scope of work, and so that will help to cut down on those contractor fees, because obviously the more time they're in there, they have to pay their bills and their overhead and things like that, but it just depends. Electricians, bring in those trades that you need. So the electricians, the HVAC guys, plumbers, and then you could piece together or be the mortar in between the bricks there to make it all come together. Otherwise, we have on the other side of the spectrum of nope. I don't know. I don't think I can do this. The YouTube seems a bit overwhelming, and I'm just not there yet. So really, it's just knowing where you're at and your capabilities, knowing your timeline. Another thing is they think, consumers it'll save me money. I won't have to, pay for their overhead and their insurance and that type of thing. Well, there's benefits to those too. There's benefits to having their insurance. Like they cut the wrong pipe or what, I've had it where the plumber didn't shut off the water, the homeowners were gone, and it flooded, and now we're back at square one. So really, there are benefits to having them as well. And then let's see. Oh, if you don't fully maybe account for when you're doing your planning, if you're doing the scope of work of, okay, I've got tile in the budget, but I forgot my cement board, I forgot mortar, I forgot grout, color match caulk, forgot all those other components that really add up. And so that's where it's nice to have that expert that does it every day, is good at it. I always say you can color your own hair, but it may not be the color you want when you're done.
Right.
So
then you have to pay to have it redone. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where we've come in, and it's like, oh gosh, you started, but now, it might cost you more or more of a premium to have them come in and fix it.
Yep.
Or you've already paid, once to have a plumber come in and now you're redoing it. Or you tried to do the plumbing and now you're redoing it with a professional plumber. So it really depends. I would say if you're really savvy, consult with multiple experts. There's so much free advice out there that just pick the brains of your friends, your family, call a couple of contractors. I've given away time. I've walked into people's homes and said, no, you guys have got this, call me if you have questions during, but right now, like you're good. And so that's another thing is an expert can kind of tell when they walk in of, no, they do need, or no, they maybe don't need as much hands-on. And so if they're willing to work like that as well, it may be worth reaching out.
All right. Awesome stuff. So
yeah,
let's now, in a minute, we're going to talk a little bit about the process, but we thought it'd be fun to show just a quick example of a kitchen remodel. And we have 2 before pictures and 2 after pictures. And this is a project that you all did, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, as we go through these 2 before pictures, Jenny, if you could just tell us a little bit about what's happening, and then we'll look at the afters, and I think people will be really impressed. But where was this house? Was this in Fort Collins?
It is in Fort Collins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Great.
Yep.
So, how old is this house?
I believe 1805.
1805.
Or 1905. 1905, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
1905.
sorry.
So over 100 years old.
Yes,
1905.
exactly.
And the mission obviously was to get a new, updated, refreshed kitchen. So this is the second before picture.
This particular homeowner had used it as a rental.
Okay.
And was just ready to get this sold.
Yep.
So you probably not the most desirable, right, to look like this to buy it, or if you're going single family.
Yep.
And so, right, we're consumers. We want to walk in. If we're paying a premium, we want to walk in and have it done. And so, yeah, just outdated, right? We've got laminate surfaces.
Dark cabinets.
Not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see no outlets there. Kind of those first things that you walk in and you see and you go, okay, yep, definitely. These are the things we're going to have to replace, right? But there's a lot underneath that we can't see either. And so we don't know exactly how things are ran.
So that's what you turned it into.
Until we get, voila.
Yeah.
So, and you can't really see the pictures from a photographer are a little light with her editing, but those are actually black appliances. And so we're seeing more black appliances come in. I know we're not on trends yet, but they're actually black and they're spectacular.
Huh.
You can kind of see from our range hood there, more of that charcoal black look.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
How much did this cost?
So that, breaking it down, my budget didn't really break it down per area because, right, we've got 3 walls that got painted, and so we've got a full paint for the whole house. And so really breaking it down, and without there's a couple other things, but minor little, $50 here or there, roughly right around $14,000.
$14,000. Okay. So that includes all new appliances.
It's with
new sink.
Yep.
Are those new cabinets, or did you just reface the cabinets?
Absolutely new. And so everything was demoed out. And then we down to the drywall. Yep. And then we went in and basically put everything back together. And so you'll see in the first picture of if you see on that fridge side, well, the fridge was on the other side, so we relocated the fridge, and then made that basically a galley kitchen. And so it had that kind of L shape there in the before picture. And so we made it a galley just because lazy Susans, I'm sorry, but they're on the way out, or it's unfunctional space. They add costs. And so with this particular kitchen, to make all the space work into space plan there, we had to add that, we had to make it a galley. Otherwise, it just all wouldn't have jived.
Got it.
And so.
And how long did this take?
Yeah. So that took it. We were working on. We did a bathroom in this house, and like kind of the whole. It was basically a whole facelift. 6 weeks, I believe, from start to finish. But we did have some painter. I'll be honest. We did have some paint delays. They also we had a hailstorm in between this, so they also were getting a new roof, and so things were kind of moving around. But 6 to 7 weeks total in the kitchen. Like this would take, if everything was jiving, it should take 3 weeks.
Really?
Depending on plumber, electrician schedule, that type of thing.
Okay.
Yep. To make sure all schedules jive. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty fast. Faster than.
But as long as your cabinets are there, right? So that's another thing for planning, and we'll get into that, is all of your stuff has to arrive. So all your materials have to be there. And so that's another thing with planning, is making sure we're pulling the trigger and getting things to the job site.
Yeah. So then, again, just
freshened it up too.
We had someone type in they want to see the before picture again. So there it is. And then that's what it turned into. That's the other after. Yeah. Well, terrific. Fantastic job. So this can lead to us talking about the process. So you're going to walk us through the process. And I know that Jenny, we want to make sure we have plenty of time for the trends and to go through all those photos of trends, because I think that'll be really interesting and fun for people. So maybe if we can just quickly go through the kind of the 5 steps for the process, and then we'll get to kind of typical costs and then also trends. So tell us just real quick the 5 steps.
Yeah, absolutely. So all contractors or firms and that type of thing are going to have different steps. But our steps are, so we have initiation, and with the initiation, you've basically pulled us in. Now we're starting determining the goals, getting the project timeline, starting the budget, making sure that we've really narrowed down that scope of work. And so in that pre-initiation is when we want, this is where it's really important for the consumer or the homeowner to know exactly what they want, really narrow down. Okay, I want a subway tile here. I want this there. Really narrow down what your needs are. Okay, I need a trash pullout. I need, the double sinks in the master bathroom or what have you, or have those needs, the must-haves, and then create that wish list. But so then when the contractor, designer, all the other trades are coming in that initiation process, when you're kind of vetting those, they can give you that narrowed down scope. And so that's the biggest thing. And then they're also going to talk to you in the initiation process of evaluating your neighborhood. And so this is where it takes a village, right? And so as we walk through it, I try to really narrow in, and the real estate side is what's our cap here? Are we in an area where we're going to put 60 grand into the house and it's all rentals? Well, we're not going to get that back out. So we might try to skew you one way or another. Or, hey, maybe I don't like to say lipstick, but maybe we do these cosmetic changes and focus on not putting high-end finishes in, and really making certain that it's a wise decision on the homeowner's behalf. And obviously, do what you love, but we'll try to talk to you in that aspect as well, and counsel in your agent. Bring them in. Let's have market trends. They're the expert, really, when it comes down to that. They've got all the information, comps. And so really just knowing, okay, what's my intention for this space? Are we moving? Are we selling? Nope, it's lifelong house or our forever home. Really figuring out what your need is, and then moving into that initiation process.
Yeah, when you told me about this when we first met, I thought it just made so much sense when you talked about how you evaluate the neighborhood, because the last thing we would ever want to do is just overbuild for the neighborhood, overinvest relative to the value of the surrounding homes and the location, et cetera. So I really appreciate that you're so conscious about that as you start the process. So.
Yeah, and I mean, even more so now, we're seeing, days on market go up, but really it's important because I get so invested in these properties. Is like the last thing I want to do is, see them sit. I mean, it breaks my heart just as much as it does yours, even though I'm not the one writing checks, but I just don't like to see that. And so really making sure that we're looking at all sides of the coin and not trying to look at it, economically and from our heart and from what we want in our, I just love that. I really want that. I hear it all the time, and it's like, okay, that's great, but then maybe we do something different over here. And so really making sure there's a balance.
Got it. Great.
And then it moves in from initiation to the planning process. And this is where we went from the start of the webinar, the planning. And so this is really honing in on budget. Planning is one of the biggest, if not biggest, I would say, stages of the property or the project. And so really knowing the intention, knowing what you want, not bursting the budget. Additions are a big thing as well. And that's why having a contingency is huge, of going, they just love what you're doing as you're there. And they're like, oh, wait, can you just do this or do that? We see it all the time. And so then it's, okay, that's additional. And so trying to be really transparent through the process, but knowing if you ask for something, it's going to cost. And so that's another thing, is trying to reduce those change orders, trying to reduce the additional, feeling nickel and dimed. And so I think that's where people feel it all the time, is kind of like getting to the checkout and you're like, oh my gosh, I spent way more than I need to. It's like going to Costco, honestly. And then you, just making certain that we're on point with our budget. We've tried to do as much as we can to plan to eliminate the unknowns. And then once you get there, then we execute. So we start demo. We've already lined out the timeline. It is big to stay when the execution process is going. This is huge for transparency and communication. Communication is so easy now. And so really establishing with your contractor how you want to communicate. And so contractors are busy. They're boots on the ground. There's all different scopes of firms and how large they are, but most of those contractors are going to be going to job sites. They might not have the 3 tiers of, manager, technicians, all of those. And so really making certain we know, okay, am I going to get a weekly email or that type of thing, and really making certain that the communication's there. And so I was actually just reading a blog the other day that was something like, this contractor hadn't been there for a couple of weeks. Now the timeline is behind because he didn't know the subcontractors. And so it's really just staying on top of it and tackling that right when you get it, take care of it. So doing things and not procrastinating. Making sure that we're communicating, whether it's text message, email, that type of thing. Questions are going to arise. And so answering those questions, making decisions somewhat fairly quick, having all the information, hey, we came across this mold today. Here's a mitigator. We have a restoration company. We've got them in for the, is this how we want to proceed? And so all those little decisions can add up. And so during that execution process, you still have to be available, but try not to micromanage to slow them down. And then we move into, just managing and monitoring. And then this is when the timeline and the planning process should roll. And so it's really just waiting, and we get excited. So make, whether it's depending on the scope of the project, weekly or daily touches at the property just to kind of see, take some pictures yourself, get excited, but try to stay out of their hair. And then there's closure. And so that's when we deliver the final product, whether it be with furnishings or without, or those final photos, final cleaning, having all those little details set up to know how are you guys going to move back in or how are you going to take over is fun. And so that's really it, closure and making that final payment.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, so I'll just recap those for everyone. So you have initiation, number 1, then planning, execution, and then 4 is you're just kind of monitoring things and managing things along the way. And then step 5 is you're done. That's delivery. So that is all great stuff. So let's dive in to trends that you're seeing right now. And we have a bunch of great pictures to show people. I know this is a question on people's mind is, all right, so if I am going to remodel, what's hot right now? What's trendy? I want to make sure I'm doing something that's kind of ahead of the times, maybe a little bit, so my remodel stays relevant and looking like along with the times for a long time, right? Don't want it to look dated right away. So let's look at some of these. And the first one you told me about ahead of time is floral wallpaper. So let me just pull that up here on
You make
the
it
screen.
sound so sexy.
Oh yeah. But look at that. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. So
yeah. So trends are so fun, and we're, everybody has their own prediction, right? So we thought shiplap was going to go out a while, but Joanna has just kept it here. But yeah, the floral wallpaper. So we're seeing more of that, let's say 50s, 60s floral, those brighter colors going out. And now we're into this new age of the larger floral. So this is actually Ellie Cashman. She's from the Netherlands. She's got a really great product. But even just adding it, so this one's a little bit overwhelming, but it's the full laundry room. But even just adding it for, say, an accent behind, your toilet, or in one wall in the laundry room, or just using it as an accent wall from that plain red wall in the kitchen. Or going as much as, I've had one client, she actually did it behind a bed, and it looked awesome with her wire bed frame.
Right.
And so it's actually a really nice, he's a great wallpaper installer here in New and so he's worked with this. But yeah, so working into those florals, but out with the chevrons, the palm leaves we're seeing kind of go out, the cactuses, everything cactus, and moving into more of this upscale floral, let's call it.
Yeah. I think it's really fun.
And dark colors.
Yeah, to do just on, like you said, on one wall, kind of as an accent. To do on all 4 walls maybe a little much, especially in a place like a bedroom. But on one wall, I think it's super fun. It's really neat. Another one, speaking of fun, is backsplashes, right? So you're seeing a lot of these bold pattern backsplashes.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of cement tile, a lot of just in accent areas, again, just like the wallpaper. And so maybe going with the backsplash. So they're a little bit more expensive, but not a huge investment. So we know, okay, we've only got 50 square foot, let's do it there. Or on the underneath of an island, instead of just doing, drywall or a skinning on that, maybe throwing in a fine cement tile or that pattern tile. Just making sure that hey, this is probably going to be outdated at some point, but not making a huge investment. And so that's the best thing. Powder floor bathrooms. We've seen a lot of the zero grade showers going into masters where they go, okay, it's not a huge investment, but it's fun. And it makes our home feel like it's ours and it's trendy and it's up to date for now. But know that, yes, things like this are going to go in and out.
Got it. So speaking of bathrooms, we have this picture here of this shower, kind of with a fun thing happening there in the little niche there, the cutout for that shampoo, and
So you can't really see here. This might not be the best example, just because my grout lines blend together. But full stack versus half stack, or that the traditional third stack of where, and if maybe Eric, if you want to go back, if it's easy to go back to the kitchen.
Yep.
The after of the kitchen, that might be a better
Oh, the
one.
after of the kitchen.
So we full stacked this backsplash.
Oh, I see. Yep.
So you'll see, that shows you more grout lines because we've got the navy with the gray grout. So you can see how it's a full stack there. And so really just being conscious of, oh, hey, I can do that 4x16 subway, but I'm going to full stack it instead of maybe half stack or third stack it to give it some dimension, to give it a little bit more of that trendy feel.
Yeah. Full stack meaning that it's not staggered. They're just stacked right on top of each other. So
exactly. Yeah. And so then if you go to the next picture that I had there after the white subway, that wasn't the best example of full stack.
This one?
There you can see that's a half stack.
Okay. Yep.
With a white grout. So you can see there all the colors really play into what your end product looks like. Okay, we've got a white tile and a white grout. Well, we could go with a black grout or gray grout or what have you. There's even glitter grout now. You know that as a trend because I haven't seen it popping up much, but there's even glitter grout, which is fun. You have to get really close to see it, but there's been some fun kitchen backsplashes with those.
I can see my daughters being excited about that one. So
we'll keep that on the down low.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So the next one you want to talk about is mixed metals, right?
Yeah. So this is fun because this picture shows so much dimension for the design. You see the hardwood there melting into the hexagon tile, but yeah, mixed metals. So creating balance with this. I even did it. You want to make sure. Yes, it's a trend. You know that things are going to go out, right? So we see those brass hardware doors or the hardware on doors. We walk in and we instantly know it's dated. Well, now it's going into this mat. So the pendant there and the sconces above the sink are more of a matte brass. Or working in with, maybe we found a great deal on the pendants, but we want to stick with more of a timeless feel on our faucet. And so then we went with that satin nickel or brushed nickel. So really just making sure that we're tuning into budget first. What's our function? And then going, I'm doing it. We're going to do the hardware. We're going brass. We know we're going to have to change it in, 10 years or whatever when we move, or we may, but doing what you love first. And then, but we're still seeing the mixed metals. Not as much rose gold anymore. The rose gold is kind of going out and it's still in the jewelry and that type of thing. But as far as in the house, not as many finished fixtures. Maybe add your clock as rose gold if you want to add those simple but not expensive items. And that's another way it's fun kind of styling is you can add in mixed metals. Maybe you add in a copper bowl, or you can add in those finishes that aren't fixed to the home, and so therefore you're taking them with you when they're not expensive or what have you.
All right, or when the trend is not in style anymore. So yeah.
We do it all the time with things, bar stools, pillows, all of that. Yeah.
Right. Fun. The next one you want to talk about is light colored wood floors. I know dark wood was kind of in for a while, but now you're seeing light wood come back.
Yeah, we are. So we're really seeing these light spaces. So with the white, we'll get into that as well. Lots of whites, lots of airy feels with that open concept. Really trying to bring in that the birches, the light oaks, the beachy tones. They reflect more light. The transition to, they feel luxurious. Honestly, here in Colorado, we all have pets. And so it's I went from a super dark floor 2 years ago to this light oak. And I'm telling you, if I didn't have the Roomba, I would have to be, you wouldn't see it as much. And so I'd really have to be conscious about vacuuming. But yeah, so it's hiding our pet hair as well, which, obviously we just want to take care of the cleaning, but it helps for the wear and tear and not having to consistently, you get that 4 o'clock shadow of every time. It's like, don't schedule showings during 4 o'clock when the light's coming in at that perfect range and they know they're going to have to clean the floors at all times. But no, so light floors, yeah, just kind of gives you some ease from the dust.
Yeah, I like that. This next one I really like. You call it bold dimensional walls.
Yeah. And I know we're running kind of short on time. I'm sorry, I get chatty, but yeah, these are great. I just did this on a project, bringing in those dark colors, bringing in the dimensional walls, adding in the molding. I think the next picture is going to snap into, if you're not so geometrical, and bringing in that geometry of maybe just doing something more timeless and bringing in some squares. We see it a lot on staircases. And so then maybe not doing as bold of a color, but I would say go more timeless with our squares and then go bold color because we know we can paint that easy, right?
Sure.
Anybody can grab a bucket of paint, lay down some tarps, get a nice, well, I can't really cut in mine, but you can get a nice paint back on there when you need to resale or to sell.
Great. The next one I just noticed a lot of, and that's white. Boy, white, bright white colors are, are so in right now. And I just personally love it. I love how it just lightens up the space. Yeah.
And honestly, for this picture, we can kind of throw these both together. The 90% white, 10% color, and then open concept. And so we're still seeing a lot of people are saying, oh, hey, open concept's going out. We're going to go back to the small rooms, or no, we just all white. But we're still seeing it. It's sticking around. And so really, again, switching things up. You can see here there's a black, looks like a quartz. It might even be concrete countertop. And then we've got the double-edged quartz island. And so really, you can play with things, do what you love. We're still seeing tons of white. We're still seeing white on white, white molding, white walls, maybe adding that accent wall to kind of give it some jazz, but white cabinets, white on white on white.
Well, you said kind of a fun rule of thumb, which is 90% white, 10% color.
So I try to stick with that. If somebody's like totally wants to go all white, add in some dimension. Otherwise, you tend to lose lines. With that is we would, looking at that back wall there of the corner by the left of the window, you would lose that corner if we had a white countertop, right? And so adding in, maybe we need to move the vase over there or the fruit bowl to add in that dimension and give the eye a point of distinction, but really you start to lose some of that. And so we don't want to take away, but we do want to have dimension. We still want to have those varieties and movement.
Got it. Great. Then the last one, real quick, is just open plans, right? So open concept design, and this just continues to evolve. The more open, the better, right? So this I think this trend I don't see changing, maybe ever.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I just was listening to a podcast and they were just insisting that it was going to change, but I don't think so. We're entertaining. We're busy people, and so having the kids at the dining table or having them, at the island, we want to make certain that things are open. We want to see what they're doing, right? We need to monitor what they're on the iPad or whatever. So I think the open concept's going to stay.
Yep.
And we're even seeing it into the bathrooms. I know this is of the kitchen, so everybody knows, okay, we want the kitchen to run into the dining and the great room, but really we're seeing it, and maybe you'll start to notice more. It's like when you buy a Prius, everybody has a Prius, but you'll see that it's into the bathroom. And so we're having way more open spaces where we have that freestanding tub, maybe even in the shower space, or only separated by a pane of glass, floor to glass ceiling. So, or floor to ceiling glass. And so really the open concept is huge right now. I think it's also in need of, like, we want to we're so busy in our lifestyle that we want to be around people. And so we're just inherently wanting to have conversation and entertain and have things open.
Awesome. That's fabulous. So this has been a lot of fun to look at these all these trends and these pictures, and we have a little time now for people to type in questions. So if you do have a question for Jenny, just go ahead and type that in, and I'll be able to see it here on my dashboard. Then I can read it to Jenny. And while you're doing that, everyone, while you're taking the time to type in a question, I'm just going to rattle off some numbers that Jenny provided, because you may be wondering, well, how much do these things tend to cost? Well, first, of course, it's going to depend on a lot of things, but we'll just kind of give you some ranges of what you may expect. So on a kitchen, you're going to look anywhere from around $13,000 to $35,000, depending. That's kind of a good range to go on. Again, that's in a kitchen, $13,000 to about $35,000. On a bathroom, you're going to look at about $6,000 up to $15,000, depending. And then how about on landscaping? So that's going to be, depends on a lot of things, obviously, with landscaping, but homeowners tend to spend between $3,000 and $8,000 on landscaping. Plus, they can spend a lot on decks, a little over $1,000. So hopefully that gives you some good thoughts there, some good rules of thumb, some good guidelines to go off of. Okay, so I did have some questions here, so I'm gonna pop open my little dashboard here. Let's see. I had someone that asked, "Are these images available?" Because they'd like to be able to show these as trends to their friends and clients. So is that okay if we share these photographs, Jenny?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I had another question that's I think really interesting to ask you, because you personally do some flips and help people with flipping homes, right?
Yep.
So the question is there a rule of thumb of what it's worth to finish or update any items in the home before you sell it? So the examples they use in the question would be finishing a basement, updating a bathroom. Like, are there any rules of thumb that you look at when you look at a potential flip of a property?
Yeah, there's a lot of those. So when we analyze a flip to start, you make your money when you purchase. And so really knowing, again, comes back to planning of what we're going to do. Finishing the basement, if that adds an extra bedroom and bathroom, we're probably going to do it, right? It adds more livable space. Now, depending on your area of where the house is, maybe adding that bathroom in the basement doesn't make sense, but adding that bedroom does. And so really looking at, again, your neighborhood, your market. Kitchens, I say they can always take it. Bathrooms are always a good return. It just depends on what you're working with when you start. And so really planning. And so knowing, getting those contractors or the bids before you start, so that you know what's going to be worth it to put into the property. Because if you know, okay, we're buying that to make numbers easy, 100, we can only put 50 in, sell it, 200 with all of our fees coming out, we can only do X, X, and X. So really, yeah, you make your money when you buy, but having that plan of attack and making sure that it's marketable. It's what people are going to desire. And that's when I would say for rehabs and flips is stay away from those those trendy trends and move back into the typicals, what the majority of people are going to want and what's going to really work with their intention of life.
Sure. Got it. Yeah. So much of that, it just depends. So that answer is maybe hard to give a blanket answer to. It just depends on the property, the location, what's going on in the market, what does the home already have, and what does it need, and it depends. Maybe one rule of thumb is stay away from super trendy things that may turn off some buyers. You want to cater to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. You may, just for our locals, you may do something a little bit more trendy down in Old Town, and then that may not work out in Windsor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, got it. Gotcha. We had one question that came in. What's kind of the average cost of remodels that you all work on? Or maybe you can even give ranges. They range from this to this.
Yeah, well, that really depends just because we do so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And really there's nothing below us. So I'm willing to work with people that, hey, we're on a tight budget. We need to get the most bang for our buck, or all the way up to we don't really care, or here's our overall budget type of thing. But I would say right in that range of, we're more of the remodel side. New builds is more on the design side of specs and selections. For me, but as far as the construction side goes, is more of the remodels and the rehabs, and so that's where my husband likes to stay.
Got it.
He loves old and making it new.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Well,
So,
like the picture you showed us. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, and like right now, I just got a picture from him earlier. He took a 1800 old. It was actually a wall, or some walls tore down and made an old tongue and groove floor and laced it all in. It looked really cool. So he just likes that side of it.
Neat. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, everyone, if afterwards you happen to have questions, if you would like to get more insights from Jenny, if you have maybe a potential project for her to look at, and where she can give you some insights and input, if you would consider hiring her, Jenny is here at your service. Speaking for you, Jenny, you can see the website there. And I'm guessing, Jenny, you'd be happy to help anyone out who's listening in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we try to stay in northern Colorado, so I try to avoid Denver. But yeah, anybody in northern Colorado, we'd love to see you.
All right, great. And you may, if someone is in Denver, you may have at least some resources or people that you could connect them with to help them out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just because, and more for the design side as well, because a lot of that can happen off site of doing just maybe measurements on site and then moving. But for build out construction, we've got tons of contractors that we would source you to, or could point you in the direction.
Great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everyone, thank you so much again for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. Watch out for the next invitation for our next Windermere workshop, and actually our next one is going to be live. So our next one that you'll be invited to is our annual real estate market forecast. Those are coming up in January. I say those because we do one night in Denver, one night in Fort Collins. We invite in our fabulous chief economist. So our chief economist's name is Matthew Gardner. He's a genius. He's a terrific speaker. He is our keynote. He's our headliner when we do our market forecast events. So we're going to be live in Denver on Wednesday, January 16th. And then the next night will be at the Marriott in Fort Collins on January the 17th. So watch for invitations to those. That's our annual market forecast. They start at 5:30 p.m. Again, January 16th in Denver at the Welshire Inn in Denver on Hamden, and then on January the 17th at the Marriott in Fort Collins. Matthew Gardner is the guest speaker. He's terrific. Jenny, thank you again so much. You were a fantastic guest. You taught us so much.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, email in your questions or call, and then have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right. Thank you for saying that. And everyone out there, have a great Thanksgiving. Jenny, thanks again, and we'll be talking with all of you soon. Thanks so much. Bye.